Welcome back to the Armchair Coaching Podcast. My name is Coach Sheffer. I am your host, and today we have yet another guest serving currently as the running backs and recruiting coordinator coach at Eaton High School in Fort Worth, Texas. You might also know him from his very funny but also very true videos about coaching life on social media, Coach Marco Regalado. Welcome on, Coach.
Hey, how's it going? Glad to be on.
Thank you for coming in. We're just going to go ahead and dive right into it because if you're listening to this as of right now, this is Thursday the 10th, and the first NFL game is about to come on here in a little bit. So I'm not trying to take up too much of your time, Coach.
No problem.
All right. So the first question is, this is something that I ask everybody because it's just one of those things I really like to hear is I'm really fascinated by everybody's coaching story. So could you kind of tell us about your coaching journey? Basically, how did you end up where you are today?
So I didn't necessarily start off, going directly into the coaching profession. I originally was going to do physical therapy. Coaching is something I really wanted to do, but it's just, how parents are. My mom's an educator, and she tried to, do something better, do something different. So I tried physical therapy, got to my senior year and did a 300-hour internship and realized it just wasn't fast-paced enough. It just wasn't what I was looking for. So finished with my undergrad at Texas State University, and then kind of was looking for a place to do grad school. And that's when I kind of stumbled upon Texas A&M Kingsville. And my first year there, I was actually I was in the athletic training program. So I have a huge respect for athletic trainers, and they work very hard. There's a huge respect for what they do. But going into year two there, I kind of developed a pretty good relationship with the coaches. So even though I was an athletic trainer, if I had free time, I'd find myself in their meetings, in their offices, asking questions, getting on the board. I just, football's a passion of mine. So going into year two, there was a couple coaches that got let go or left, and they had a graduate assistant position available, and they got offered to me. And, I had to really put in some time to think about it if I wanted to continue with athletic training or take on this coaching journey. And I took the coaching position, and I'm 100% glad I did that. So finished up with my master's and had an opportunity to coach high school football. And I've been coaching high school football going on my 5th year. Predominantly it's been in South Texas, and this is kind of my big jump. I moved 8 hours north, and I'm, like you said, currently at Eaton High School here up in Fort Worth, Texas, and coaching 6A ball in the DFW, and I don't think it gets any better than that.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. So I'm from Virginia over here on the East Coast, and, we like to think that we take football pretty seriously. But some of the things that we see on social media coming out of Texas are a little shocking at times for us. Is that all true? Is that all real?
I mean, yeah. I mean, we have an athletic period every day. We have staffs of like 12 to 13 coaches. Even small schools. I was at a 3A school with 300 kids in the entire school, and we had 13 coaches on our staff. It's a pretty special thing. Texas high school football, it is taken very seriously, and not that other states don't take their football seriously. It's just, to me, it's just a different structure. And very few states structure the way they do. Like to coach at a public school here in Texas, you have to be a certified teacher and teach at the school. You can't kind of take a stipend position and be just a coach. So it's kind of a demanding process. You have to take your board certifications to be a teacher, your content areas. Can be a long process. Our private schools, you don't have to be a teacher. You can just coach, but that's just a little bit of the way that it works here in Texas.
Okay. Yeah. Here in Virginia, at least in our county, you don't have to be a certified teacher to be on the staff. And so currently on our particular staff, we don't have nearly as many coaches as you do. We have maybe 8 coaches. And some of us are JV, some of us are varsity, some of us are both. And so I think maybe we have 3 of us who are actually teachers and the others are off campus. So that's a little difficult.
Yeah.
So I kind of wanted to talk about your social media videos a little bit. They definitely went viral, and for me, I found them very funny and they were very enjoyable. And I think they were so enjoyable because they all ring with truth. Almost pretty much every single thing that was on those videos was just so true. And so many people really responded positively towards your videos. Can you kind of like give the listeners the story about how those started?
Yeah, I blame it all on boredom, to be honest. We were all quarantined, stuck, and I was stuck in my apartment by myself for a good while. And, I had already ran out of things to do. I'd been playing Madden for like hours at a time. I needed something else to keep my mind going. So I downloaded the TicToc app. A couple of my students had encouraged me to do it. They said, "Coach, you do funny things. You should try that app." And I'd always kind of brushed it off, but I guess boredom got the best of me. And I downloaded the app, and I just realized, I thought it was just kids dancing. I didn't really know what the app was. And then I realized, like, oh, this is like really funny. You can really get really, really creative and with the videos and stuff. And, the first couple things I uploaded was just me playing guitar and singing. I thought that was going to make me viral, but I guess I'm not that good. But it wasn't until, I was getting kind of that, football itch. I was missing football. I've been watching Huddle. And so the first video I did was just kind of like a parody of game day. And I got in my game day gear, my slacks, my game day shoes, and all this other stuff. And then I just stood in front of a TV and played Madden. So it was like getting ready for game day, and it was just Madden. And people saw that, thought it was funny, and said, "You should do another one." So then I can't even remember what the second video I did was. I did a couple more, and people kept requesting more. And really when it took off was I did this little series called 4th and 3. So it was just coaches deciding whether or not they're going to go for it on 4th and 3. And it's all these different coaches' reactions. The first one was just a 15-second video of just basically a head coach and an offensive coordinator staring at each other. And then people saw that and were like, well, did they go for it? What happened next? You can't just leave us hanging. You have to make a part 2. And when I made that part 2, that video got like 300,000 views. That one just took off. And that's really where this whole thing took off. And it really wasn't something I was expecting. I didn't plan on this at all turning into what it did. It's been kind of a blessing. It's humbling.
I think one of my personal favorites is the one where you're impersonating a parent in the stands. That one is so true. We're in completely different states, but football is football and parents are parents. And our particular stadium, the stands are right behind us.
I've been in similar places.
We hear some stuff that we sometimes wish we wouldn't hear. And then I showed that to my wife and she's like, yeah, that's pretty true. That's what I hear in the stands all the time when you guys are playing. And I think one of the funniest parts of that is a couple people actually did kind of like response videos. And there was a funny one with a lady who was like trying to act like a mad coach's wife. I thought that one was pretty good too. But I know you're busy because, you guys are playing football in Texas right now and you're going through practice, but I really hope you continue to do some of those videos in the future. So next question, kind of leading off of that, a lot of states like us here in Virginia are not playing football, at least not in the fall. So what has the process of return to play been like for you guys in Texas?
It's been a long, tough process. There's definitely a lot of guidelines and, precautions that have been taken, and planning, tons of planning. Yeah, we planned for months for day one, just to make sure everything went as planned, distributing equipment, practice, like everything has been planning. We've had to plan so much, plan more than ever. but that's what we have to do to make this happen. Being mask police, make sure we're wearing masks. It's been worth it, just to be able to get out there with these kids, and you hear it all the time, but a lot of these kids really need this. They need it, to just be able to get out of the house and get a little bit of normalcy. That's been my thing, talking to coaches, and I've had conversations with some coaches up in other states, coaching college, and it's sad. There's other programs that are getting furloughed, people losing jobs, and it sucks. But all I pray for, and everybody else has as well, is just normalcy. Like, we just want to get back to normal. And I think us just suiting out, kids putting helmets on, me putting my whistle back around my neck has just been that little bit of taste of normalcy that's just like a breath of fresh air.
Have you guys started school yet?
We have been online for the past 3 weeks, and Monday will actually be our first day in person.
Okay. Are you going full 100% in person, or is it going to be kind of a 50-50 model?
It's like a hybrid. We let the students choose, but I believe we'll be at about 80% of our student body back in person.
Okay. Yeah, I totally understand trying to get a little bit of normalcy. This week has been our first week back in school, and we are 100% virtual, at least for the first grading quarter. Mm-hmm. And they're gonna revisit the issue right before the second grading quarter, whether or not they want us to go back. Unfortunately, in our area of Northern Virginia, we got hit pretty hard with COVID, and so the higher ups are a little scared to go back to 100%. And I'll have to say, it felt right to be teaching again. Mm-hmm. It just felt right to me. Felt like I was doing what I was supposed to do, but it also wasn't exactly the same. I'm talking to the computer screen all day long. So that's a little challenging. All right. The next question I want to ask, this is one I ask pretty much everybody, is I've been doing a lot of studying on like leadership and coaching philosophy. Do you have a specific leadership style or coaching philosophy that you use? And if you do, where do you think that comes from?
So I guess leadership wise, I feel like I'm one that leads by example. I feel like if I ever had a head coaching job, I'd be one of the ones who's going to be there first. And if we're setting something up that's manual labor, I'd be right there with my guys. I've never, ever been much of a delegator. Even I take it back to when I was in college, I was a president of an organization. It was like a football club, and we played and got equipment and all this other stuff. And, I had, that was my big issue. I had trouble delegating. I wanted to do everything myself. And that's something I've kind of learned a little bit, is to delegate, but you can still help and be there. And I think I learned a lot of that from watching my high school coaches and how they did things, and it was a big team effort. I've never really worked for like a guy who just kind of stood up high and told everybody else what to do. It's like I said, it's always been a team thing, which is what I enjoy about the sport. It's a team sport. Even as a coach, that's your team as coaches, and you kind of help each other out and build off of each other. And I guess that would be my leadership style. Coaching style, I guess that everybody's got a little different coaching style. I like to think mine is a little unique. I'm not one to really raise my voice. I'm more of I'm going to bring a kid in, put my arm around him, and talk to him about what he did wrong, and correct him. That's just the way I do things. Obviously, there's times, and especially when you're in a game and you're trying to get to a kid who's on the other hash, and you got to get him to hear you. You got to yell. But I think teaching moments need to be just like you would in a classroom. You're not going to rip a student because they did something wrong. I think you take that and you make it a teaching moment. And you also got to use differentiation. As an educator, that's a big deal. Kids react differently. Some kids they like that, and some kids you got to be on them and keep pushing them, and that's the way that they're going to be successful.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Even here in Virginia, differentiation is a big word.
That's my favorite word. When I was getting my master's, it was in educational administration, and we had to do a project on differentiation, and that has stuck with me since.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I use that, and I've used it in every interview I've had. And I mean, like, that's just a big word, and it's so important nowadays. The kids are different. You have to have different teaching styles, and same thing, different coaching styles. You have to differentiate the lesson, I think, for every kid. So every kid can get the same growth from it. Mm-hmm. Just because you got to realize everybody's a different kind of learner.
Yeah, I agree that I've been in a couple different interviews for different teaching positions, and I'll have to admit, saying that you're a football coach really doesn't help, at least not in Virginia. But the moment that you start pulling out those big education words like differentiation and oh gosh, what's another one that I used to use? The fact that in one of my interviews, I'm pretty sure this got me the job, where I said that I was willing to do team teaching for SPED. I think that got me a job more so than coaching ever did. So if you're a listener out there and you're a teacher, use those big teaching words, those big education words. The other word was inquiry. Mm-hmm. They like to hear about inquiry. So especially in science. The next one is everybody loves to hear X's and O's. So what offensive and defensive schemes do you use, and why?
So defensively, I've been coaching defense for the past 4 years. This is my first year back on the offensive side of the ball. But defensively, most recently I was in a double eagle flex defense, which is also known as the Desert Storm defense, and I just absolutely love it. It's different. It's unorthodox. You don't see it a lot, and it gets to utilize kids who are undersized. It's predicated on having speed. Your defensive lineman may not be your big type of defensive lineman, but you definitely have more athletes on the field. And it's just the defense that is predicated on pressure. You're going to put so much pressure on the quarterback. The times that we ran it when we were at Kingsville, I believe 2 out of the 3 years I was there, or kind of with that staff was there, they had the number one defense in terms of sacks, turnovers, because again, when you create pressure, you put the quarterback in an uncomfortable situation where he's either going to fumble or throw it away. Mm-hmm. So I had a lot of fun with that defense. Offensively, I'd always hung my hat on the air raid. I played in a slot T, ground and pound offense. I loved it, but obviously once you get into coaching, you want to learn something new that you hadn't done before. Like the slot T offense, I can name it. I know it like the back of my hand. But when I got into coaching, I really dove into the air raid and fell in love with the idea of it. And I could find similarities between the whole idea of the slot T and getting 3 yards in a cloud of dust. But the same thing is with air raid is finding open space, finding the grass and getting the ball out. But I guess more recently, with our offense that we're running here at Eaton, I'm just kind of falling in love with it. I really like it's based on a lot of choice routes kind of deal, and I like it. I don't want to get into too much detail in it. Hopefully nobody in our district is listening to it, but I just think it's involves the run game a lot, but you're still able to, take the top off the defense and throw the ball. So I like what we're doing.
Yeah. Okay. You seem pretty passionate about the double eagle desert storm. Is that what you called it?
Yeah, it's like the double eagle flex. It's called the Desert Storm. Cal Poly used to run it back when. I believe Arizona used to run it too. One of the I think Army. It's kind of died out. There's not a whole lot of schools that do it anymore.
So can you kind of describe that? Because I'm not sure if I've ever really heard of that before.
Yeah. So I guess so you have a nose. Mm-hmm. He's shaded on the center depending on where the strength is called. And you have 2 defensive ends, which are, I would say there's 7 techniques. They're out wide, but it just depends on if you're a field or a boundary end, whether you're a jam 7 or an air 7. So you have your nose, your two ends. Then you have what's called a flex backer. So it's kind of like a hybrid defensive lineman linebacker, but what it really is your Mike linebacker type bodies, your short, stocky, 220-pound dudes. They're playing flex backer. Flex backer plays outside shade of a guard, a yard and a half off the ball. So they're flexed off the ball. They're kind of in a surfer stance. They're playing the outside shade of the guard, and that's what they're reading. And it's cool because usually when you're a defensive lineman, you're on the line, the guard pulls, you trail him, you chase him. So here you're flexed off the ball, you're able to read a little bit better. When you have a guard pull, the flex backer, instead of chasing, bonuses over top. So then you get a half or hat, you get an extra person on the play side. And then your other flex backer on the opposite side of the ball, like let's say you're getting a counter coming one way. The guy if that guard's blocking down, he's riding his hip and he's there ready to spill that first blocker. So basically, essentially, when you have that other flex backer bonusing over top, he's a free runner. So now you're thinking about, okay, you got your front five. So you have 5 people on the defensive line technically for 5 offensive linemen. So that's half or hat. Mm-hmm. You have your Mike backer, which is more of a strong safety type body. You know, he's still got to be able to tackle. He's got to be your best athlete, your best tackler on the team, but he's also got to be able to run. So that's your middle linebacker. He's right in the middle of the field. And theoretically, if you have hat for hat, he's not getting blocked. His job is find ball. He's not really reading much. He doesn't have to read guards because you got flex backers on top of the guards take care of those reads for you. Because if you really think about it, if you walk those flex backers back, you're in an odd front. And that's what they're doing. They're keying the guards. If a guard pulls and they bonus over top, all you're doing is just walking them up close to the line. Middle linebackers, again, free runner. And everybody else backside. So you have, a corner, a rover, a strong safety, and a corner. They're manned up. Like I'm just kind of saying it of a doubles formation with a single back. So you have your field corner, boundary corner. One of them is pressed up. One of them's playing off. You have your rover and your strong safety, which can be interchangeable. And again, one of them's pressed up. One of them's playing off. And then you have your free safety, which is kind of playing center field. So it's technically a man free, but it's a man free with help. It's just depends on field and boundary and the techniques you put your defensive backs at. But again, if you're running this at a high school level and you have 5 defensive linemen on 5 offensive linemen, and let's say you drop back to pass, your offensive lineman has to be perfect all across the board. And you're trying to count on kids who are 15, 16, and 17 years old to be perfect. Somebody's going to mess up. So you're going to have I like it. It brings pressure. It looks different. It creates fits up front because of the way it's really hard to run counters and stuff like that again, because you have 5 people on the line, but they're also really athletic kids up on the line. You have a free runner at Mike, and then, you just have your defensive backs doing what defensive backs do and manning up, and a free safety kind of being an alley player.
Okay. Did you ever have, I'm sure you guys have played some wing T type teams out there. Did you ever have any of them try to do any kind of like false pull or, have a guard pull one way and the ball's actually going the other way? Anything like that ever happened to you?
Oh, plenty of times. And when we were running it at PSJ Memorial, it was still our first year doing it. So we had a lot of growing pains. We did get hit with a couple reverses and caught us undisciplined. But the more times you practice it and you train your eyes right, it gets a little bit better, especially because your Mike is like in that defense isn't reading guards. So they can try to cross key and stuff like that. If he's following ball, he's going to make the play. But it's funny. Yeah. You say that wrong keys and stuff like that. When I was in high school, we had a play called guards opposite where we pulled the guards, left guard to the left, right guard to the right, and then gave the fullback the ball up the pipe. And if we found a team that had linebackers that were keying guards, we would do that and just have a field day.
All right. So let's go a little bit more like big picture and talk about college football, because we talk a lot about college football on this podcast. So what are your thoughts on how the different conferences are handling the pandemic? So, how do you feel differently between how the Big 12 is doing it, because you're in Big 12 country, versus how Pac-12 and the Big Ten are handling it. What are your thoughts and feelings on
Hold
those?
on 1 second.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Getting some food delivered.
That's okay.
So college football, that's tough because all conferences are different. You'd like to think everybody's playing FBS. It's all the same. But some teams just don't have the budget to be able to do it, and I can understand why they're making certain decisions. But I can also see that, a lot of these schools are making certain decisions because of the health aspect of it. It is scary. The whole idea of COVID. The one that's kind of, I think, the people who are getting the brunt of it, that are getting hit the hardest is, I think, Division II. Division III, a lot of them are moving to the spring. JUCO has moved to the spring. But I think Division II, they're getting in a situation where they're not getting extra scholarship money, and they're having to keep these seniors for an extra year, and they can't offer anybody right now. And then, like I was saying before, a lot of these guys that are not being able to play or getting furloughed because the school can't afford to pay them if they're not playing and they're not getting that revenue from ticket sales. Like, it's a tough situation. And I think every team and every athletic director, for their university is making the best decision, I guess, that they feel for their school. It's just kind of hard to judge that. It's kind of hard from an outside perspective. Obviously, I'd like to say everybody should play, but I don't know what's going on internally with their budget or with their health, and that's what makes it tough. I mean, you just have to kind of trust that they're doing the best for the kids and doing the best for the employees there.
Right. Next question, also college related, but it's more kind of like who are you a biggest fan kind of question. So do you have any specific college teams that you really root for? Like on Saturdays, you're ready to watch them whenever you can. And on top of that, what coaches would you call an inspiration? And you can use college coaches if you want, or you can even talk about high school coaches that you deal with.
So I like to follow every college team in Texas. I just, as a loyal Texan, that's what I like to do. But Texas State is my main team. And if anybody's playing against Texas State, then boo on them. That's my alma mater. No matter what the result is going to be of the game, that's who I'm going to root for. And in terms of coaches, there's too many great coaches out there that to me are just inspirations. I love Coach O's story, Coach Ogeron. And then you go into like NFL and you look at a Juan Castillo, who's currently the offensive line coach for the Bears, and what he had to do to get to where he's at and what he's been through, to me is probably one of the most inspiring things that I've ever heard, coming from where I come from, a little Hispanic South Texas town, grew up with just a mom, and found his way to play college football and turned that into a college coaching job and turned that into an NFL job. And he's had like a 20-plus year NFL career, just coaching offensive line for the Philadelphia Eagles, for the Ravens, for the Bills, like I said, and now for the Chicago Bears. And like I said, just coming from the humble beginnings he did, and turning it into the career he's had, to me, has been absolutely inspiring.
All right. Well, I told you I wasn't going to take up too much of your time tonight, because we do have some football that we're all going to – I'm pretty sure the whole nation is ready to watch some NFL football tonight. Before we go, do you have any final thoughts, words of wisdom for all the coaches out there, whether they're playing football this fall or not, any kind of positive vibes to send their way?
I guess just keep your head up. You can only control what you can control and do what you can do, for your family, for your kids, for your school. And like I said, just a positive attitude can go a long way. So that'd be the best thing I can do, is just keep your head up. Then things will get back to normal soon. Normalcy will return. I know it and I can feel it. And like I said, my prayers go out to all the teams that aren't playing, and for the kids who aren't playing, because I can only imagine what they're going through right now. And I guess the one piece of advice that I can give to young Marco, and I guess the other young coaches and stuff like that, is to be where your feet are at. You know, really, when I first got my coaching job, I was always looking for what's the next gig, what's the next thing I can do, and I'd be just scouring the job boards, and that never worked in my favor. You know, the jobs that I was seeking, I never got. But when I started taking the approach of I'm here, and let me do it the best I can here, I started getting calls to go places, and that was the big difference. Is people notice when you work hard, and people appreciate that. And that's how I got this job. Obviously, a little bit of social media presence helped, but to be honest, I wasn't applying or looking places. It's just somebody saw what I did and called a couple references, and it ended up turning into a really nice job offer.
All right. Well, I really appreciate you for coming on tonight, Coach.
I appreciate you for having me on.
All right. Thank you very much. This has been the Armchair Coaching Podcast, and this is Coach Sheffer signing off.